What's up? It's Susie from Hey Grill Hey, and today I'm going to teach you the basics of making your own backyard barbecue seasonings and rubs. Let's do it. Now, I love rubs and seasonings, and evidenced by the fact that I have my own line of them. But I started developing rubs and seasonings so that I could really bulk up and layer on the flavor of things that I was cooking during my backyard barbecues. I think to date, I've probably developed maybe 50 different seasoning blends, barbecue rubs, dry rubs, you name it, because I have so much fun playing with flavors, and I'm gonna give you my secret formula to making a really delicious seasoning that you can absolutely customize to your own taste. Every seasoning has 3 main components, and then I'm gonna give you a bonus component, so 4. The first element to most dry blends and seasonings is salt. Now, salt is not a requirement. If you're somebody that needs low salt, making your own seasoning blends is amazing because you can use as little or as much or none at all to make your seasoning blends. But if you are using salt, it is going to be one of the key components of any rub that you make. Now, salt brings a light flavor that offsets a lot of richness of meat itself. Salt, when used correctly, doesn't taste like salt. It just makes the thing you put it on taste more like itself. So beef will taste beefier, veggies will taste veggier. Whatever you put salt on is going to amplify the flavor of the thing itself. I tend to stick with a coarse ground flake kosher salt. This is Morton brand. It's my favorite for when I make dry rubs and seasonings. The texture of it sticks to the meat really well. It dissolves onto the food really well, and it gives me a really nice, clean salt flavor, and it's widely available. Another type of salt that I use really often is an ancient sea salt. We have it in Utah. It's called real salt. It's local to me. If you can get your hands on some, check it out. It has a really mild salt flavor. It's not as sharp, and I know it's weird talking about salt having flavor, but every salt does kind of have a different flavor profile. So knowing your salts is a great start to building a dry rub that you love. Other options would be diamond kosher salt that's more of a pyramid shape, or coarse ground sea salt that has more of a round kind of crunchy shape. There's also finishing salts. The one thing that I don't recommend using in a rub would be a fine ground table salt. Most people use too much table salt because it's so fine in their rub. So when you're making a dry rub, stick with something like a kosher salt. The next really common element is pepper, and pepper presents itself in several different ways. So black pepper is one of our most common variants. You can use fine ground or coarse, but I will also recommend using coarse ground in most of your rubs. This is a medium grind for a dry rub. I think it's perfect if you're doing something like a brisket that you really want that hearty, hefty black pepper, an extra coarse grind. You have to be mindful, again, with fine grinds. Sometimes you can overuse the amount because the volume will change based on how fine the grind is. The cool thing about dry rubs is you can always adjust at any point during the rub building process. If you feel like it's too peppery, you can increase the other ingredients to take away some of that pepper flavor. Next up, we're going to talk about aromatics and herbs. Aromatics are things like garlic, onion. Usually these come in granulated or powdered forms. These provide a really rich backbone to your dry rub seasonings. Ginger, mustard powder. One that we go to a lot with the herbs would be like oregano, thyme, parsley, and they really give you a lift to your seasoning blends. They bring a freshness that's really hard to replicate without those herbs. Next up is heat. And this is kind of the optional one. You'll notice a lot of my rubs call for smoked paprika or paprika. This does add color, but paprika is dried and ground peppers, usually red bell peppers. And so having this as kind of a background element in my seasonings doesn't bring a lot of heat, but it does bring a beautiful color and a nice pepper flavor. I also use chili powder, cayenne pepper, ancho powder, jalapeno powder. Any of these dried chilies or peppers can bring a nice heat that really rounds out your seasoning blend. But again, the spice is optional. One last ingredient that I want to talk about that's not necessary in any rub, but is pretty common in barbecue rubs, would be a sugar. In my sweet rub, for example, we use a dark brown sugar to really bring out a nice caramely flavor in the meat that we're putting it on or whatever we're seasoning. But again, sugar is optional, so I'm including it, but it's not a requisite to make a really delicious barbecue rub. So now we're gonna put that formula into action, and I'm gonna make 3 of the most popular dry rub seasonings on my website and show you how these simple 3 main categories can create a wide variety of flavor profiles for the rubs you make at home. All right, now that you know the basics, you can go forth and make your own seasonings that are perfect for your family. If you're somebody that likes things a little saltier or less saltier, maybe you want to experiment with adding in MSG and really amplifying the flavors of your rubs or the food in your own backyard, totally an option. There is basically no limit other than your creativity to the flavor combinations you can put together and the food that you can put it on. So if you have a favorite already, share it in the comment section below. I would love to see what you're making at home. And if you have some ideas for some really fun new rubs, you'll have to let me know how they turn out the next time you make it at home. See you next time.